JMU's spring transfer portal haul is going way under the radar, in my opinion. They brought in about 10 guys, all of which I think can make an immediate impact for the Dukes in the fall. One of the names that I think is going particularly under the radar is Brionne Penny. He's a wide receiver from San Diego State, listed on JMU's roster at 6'2", 215 pounds. He had 24 catches for 290 yards and a touchdown last year. Those stats don't jump off the page all that much but when you put them into context, they're very impressive. San Diego State, one of the worst passing offenses in college football in 2023. Just an abysmal passing unit. They had a game against Nevada where they threw for under 50 yards as a team. They were 6 of 14, kind of just abandoning the pass altogether or trying to lean on defense in the running game, special teams, those sort of things. They've done that for a couple years, struggled with it. They had some coaching turnover, should become more efficient in future seasons. But Penny left as a result of some of those coaching changes, despite actually producing pretty well for the Aztecs. And I think JMU could be a huge beneficiary of his services. So last year, 3 games for San Diego State where they went over 250 passing yards, just 3 all season. In those 3 games, Penny was really, really special. Against Oregon State, which was ranked in the top 20 of the AP poll at the time of the game, he had 6 catches for 77 yards. Against Boise State the following week, one of the best teams in the Mountain West, one of the best group of 5 teams over the last few years, really decades. 5 catches for 97 yards, averaged almost 20 yards reception, had 2 catches in that game for 30 plus yards. And then Utah State was the other performance where San Diego State went over 250 passing yards. He had 4 receptions for 57 yards, including a touchdown. So a solid performance in that game, a solid performance in every game where the Aztecs had what I would call a competent passing attack going over 250 yards. He's really good over the middle of the field. He's a big-bodied receiver who's solid running crossing routes, doing sort of those intermediate routes. He seems like somebody who could be a possession receiver, sort of similar to Elijah Surratt last year, where Surratt wasn't necessarily blowing by guys on deep routes, but really doing a ton of damage over the middle of the field, creating some openings in certain spots. I think he fills that kind of role well, especially with Taji Hudson and Cam Ross being able to stretch the field a little bit more vertically, and Hudson having a ton of size at 6'4", figures to play on the outside for the Dukes. So Penny fits in really well with the offensive scheme. He produced at a high level in a bad passing offense. So I think if you put him in Dean Kennedy's scheme, which could be a little bit run heavy given JMU's personnel, but I think there's chances there for receivers to step up and have huge seasons. I think Penny is one of those guys. Taji Hudson, Cam Ross, both seem like 2 guys who are going to see the field a lot. I think Penny could sort of be that third receiver that steps up. JMU sort of had that 3-headed monster last year with Reggie Brown, Elijah Surratt, and Phoenix Sproles. Sproles more similar to Cam Ross. Surratt, I think, more similar to Penny, and then Reggie Brown, some similarities there to Taji Hudson. So if you're following my logic there, I think they could have another really solid passing attack again this year. I also think, to add a little more context to those stats that he had at San Diego State, it's a team that struggled passing the ball last year, obviously. Their leading receiver was Mark Redmond. He's a tight end. 38 catches for 408 yards last year and 3 touchdowns. Led the team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. So again, not great if your leading receiver has 38 catches, barely over 400 yards, and only 3 touchdowns. But Redmond, really talented player himself, started his career at Washington, has since transferred to Louisville after this past season. So Louisville is expected to be sort of an up-and-coming team in the ACC. They've done a great job with NIL and in the portal. So the number 1 receiver on the team, tight end, Mark Redmond, is going to a Power 5 school. The number 2 receiver on the team has stayed with San Diego State, and he was actually named the Offensive Player of the Year on the team last year in 2023. So the third guy there, Penny, who is just behind them with the stats, now goes to JMU. So I think it speaks a little bit to the talent level there. Is the number 1 true wide receiver was viewed as the best offensive player on the team, and he only had 300-some receiving yards. The top tight end who led the team in receiving is going to a pretty impressive ACC school. And then Penny here is heading to JMU. So I think it's a steal in the portal. I think he's a guy who's probably wildly underrated because he played for a team that's simply very bad at passing last year. But he stepped up, made some plays, and in the games where San Diego State was competent throwing the football, Penny really shined. So I think he has a chance to step up immediately, make a big impact, and it could give JMU one of the bigger, more sizable receiving cores in the Sun Belt with Taji Hudson at 6'4". You've got Penny at 6'2", 215, and then Cam Ross is just a shade below 6 feet, but a really talented receiver with a lot of speed. So they've got options at receiver, JMU does, this coming fall. And I think Penny is a name to keep an eye on because his talent level is undeniable, and he's finally coming to a team that has a better history of throwing the football successfully.